So the topic is an interesting one, and actually everybody is discussing about this. So I think we're going to have a couple of interesting changes. So, I mean, I mentioned before, so we're going to be discussing SuperApps. I think I mentioned before how the so-called green funding the unfunding has triggered the evolution. The fintech we've seen over the past years. We now are actually witnessing exactly the opposite. So we are seeing apps and services coming back to one umbrella. So the question is this a trend that you also see as well? And what's behind? Maybe we start with Andreas and then.
Okay, thank you. Yes, actually, in my bank I have a big problem. My CEO is a big fan of SuperApps. I have another problem. He's a big fan of ChatGPT. So we have a very strange CEO, and but a very smart one, just like ours. So maybe, I don't know, but definitely ours is very smart. The problem with CEOs that they have PhDs from Wharton and they've done a hell of a lot of things is they can be uncontrollable. Now let's agree. One principle I have is before I start talking about the topic, to agree what exactly do we mean by SuperApps. Not so much with regard to the functionality, because the functionality is more or less there. But which part do we look at? Are we looking at it from the customer's point of view? Are we looking at it from the businesses participating point of view? Are we looking at it from the bank's point of view? Depending on the answer, you may end up at a different solution, because sometimes people define SuperApps as closed loops with customer journeys that they are unified. Some people also argue that, you know what, this is the technology version of a mall. Because what is a mall? A mall is a building that more or less looks the same. There are shops, and more or less the minute you enter, you move from one shop to another, you can move upwards, downwards, left, right. But it is within a whole ecosystem, because a mall is an ecosystem. So if an app is an ecosystem of journeys, unified journeys, that you don't exit from one shop to another to see different look and feel, and somehow it's unified, correct, you may have a definition. Now, it sounds exotic and it sounds very romantic. As far as I'm concerned, I believe that not everybody can build this type of super apps, because if we have many super apps, there will be a big problem. Either the world will be divided into 5 or 6 super apps, so there will be massive, we will return back to Soviet Union versus US super apps, unless we start having overlaps. So a business coexists in 10 super apps. That will be ridiculous. There won't be any. To have a meaningful super app, it means that you have a gravitas, and there are businesses participating there, but they participate only there. If they participate everywhere, it's stupid. It's like a marketplace. I'm talking too much.
No. We have 2 hours, we have 3 hours.
I just want to follow up because I heard a couple of interesting things I want to pick up. So one is the closed exactly, so we keep it. Before we continue, I guess Andrius, we don't disagree to see this trend, and I guess Revolut is one of the.
Yeah, we have SuperApp already in the world, the 2 SuperApps, right? They always use that example. But in one country.
Exactly. Actually, we have it in geography, which is not Europe.
Exactly.
So yeah. I think we have to differentiate.
Yeah, but how to say the aspiration and kind of at least some sort of, can it be cracked? And it's super difficult to crack it in Europe. And we know, right? We are across all countries in Europe.
In the West, not only in Europe.
A friend of mine, an American friend of mine, told me once, in Europe you have a big problem. What is that? Too many countries. So small size, too many countries. So the way I see, so therefore, if you define what is a super app, then you start thinking about transaction economics, who makes money, how do you make money, how do you govern all that. This is technicalities. Focusing to Europe. Europe has big problems in itself. So we believe too much into privacy. We believe too much into not exchanging data. We have regulators that they hate things moving from one to another. Imagine a super app that when you move from one shop to another, you need to give consent. So such that your footprint will not be shown, and all sort of ugly things that can destroy the concept before it has even started. So my personal belief is that there are certain nations that they have habits, and the habits is the technology upon which it is placed. They love these habits. They are day and night on an app, for instance, in Asia. I'm not criticizing, this is what it is. So therefore, if this is true, you can build an economy based on a phenomenon on that. Now, what you cannot do, you cannot superimpose a technology into a phenomenon that does not exist. So now, having said that, I think for consumers, super apps could be like metaverse, too interesting, but not too realistic. For business to business, super apps may be a different conversation. We have in Greece an ecosystem of nearly 25,000 companies in the tourism sector. Right? It's not an app, but it's an ecosystem. So they are connected, they exchange information, they buy services. One would say, nah, this is not a super app, this is a marketplace. Well, depends, again, how do you define it? If you have B2B to C, and all these nice things, activities within a network, define that like, let's not disagree on the definition terms. So I see, as far as Europe is concerned, more likely to see these connected dots into the B2B sectors and much less into the consumer.
Exactly. The question is how do you access them, and then if we go back to the definition, the question is, Andrius, I mean, if I say how do you define super apps in Asia versus how do you define them in the West, I think the definition is probably not one.
They're different. We have this, how to say, fact that I think both of those super apps that I was talking about, WeChat and Alipay, maybe WeChat specifically, was actually built from the bottom up in terms of its messaging, which was kind of added, attached. A lot of other items were attached. Payments were kind of attached.
It was second, actually. It was second. First it was Alipay, then it was.
Yeah, Alipay. I think it was we're starting with messaging right away, or payments first, and then probably messaging, right? So, but what I want to say, the thesis is really simple. It's probably much easier to build a super app when you have billions of customers already, maybe messaging each other every day, 10 times a day, right? And then you just plug in. The thing is, thankfully to us, that all the attempts so far, and you're going to go probably have all this research that where it's successful, it's failing. You know what we have? We have WhatsApp failing in certain areas, right? Introducing payments, so kind of we have some, difficulties, right? We have continuous Facebook or Meta attempts, also kind of failing, not necessarily taking ground as they would like to, because it's so no-brainer. It looks no-brainer when you look at that. 2 billion monthly active users. You just put something.
But the question is it failing based on the Asian standards or based on the Western standards?
I'm just talking about in general, right? Like, what scares us, what actually motivates us to move as fast as possible, and the reason to some extent is why we're moving so fast, why we're adding, millions now of customers a month, is we have to get to that level. So hopefully no one cracks the code on these messaging systems out there, or this, and then we still have a chance. Because in the end, whatever way you define super app, maybe you are thinking right away with 100 different services within the app. For us, it's still relatively pragmatic. You come to do a payment, but then you realize that you're traveling in 2 days, and somehow the app offers you the best travel insurance or something else, right? Or car insurance, whatnot, and then other auxiliary or kind of close proximity services within that kind of money area, maybe like the stays, like the Booking.com thing. So for us, it's still pragmatic. It's not like necessarily adding a lot of other kind of department store items at the moment. So we build it through this way. But the key thing is we have to run. We don't have a privilege to sit down to launch something slowly, to kind of build our customers slowly. We have to run, even if we want to have at least 1% chance to build something like SuperApps, right? Because we have to build the ecosystems, both on retail side, where we currently have close to 35 million or so users globally, and on the business side, where we have like more than 1 million signed up businesses. We build those, and then magic will happen. Then we could overcome some sort of, card schemes, both of those worlds had the Revolut, right? We will overcome maybe Swift, as today we announced the RevTag launched with the kind of challenging Swift the payments for businesses. So, we approach things pragmatically, but we have to be super fast to kind of hope that those big guys, don't kind of crack the code miraculously.
But you mentioned the ecosystem, and I think this is a key word. But the question is, going back to Andreas, what Andreas was mentioning, I mean, unless you have a common access, a gateway, can you consider that you have a SuperApp? Because you might have different layers, doors in an ecosystem, but unless you have one door that everybody is using to access the services, can you say that you really have I don't know,
if you want to be purist, you don't. But there are some principles that you have to think about some principles. For instance, the journey. Now, can you have multiple access, multiple doors, and a common journey? Difficult because you need a pilot. You need somebody that is going to be in charge of the design. So you need an architect. The way I see it, the common door necessitates an architect whereby you offer an experience, because if it's not an experience, it's going to be just a place to get deals. So it becomes very fast a marketplace. If you see what many telcos have tried, because telcos have tried very hard to replicate what has happened in Asia. And what the telcos have big advantages. They have money, they have marketing, they have technology, they have subscribers. And they know what the subscribers do every second. Banks have no idea about this information that telcos have. Nevertheless, I have seen no telco in Europe managing to make such a...
So not even telco, Andreas. Not even one telco. I'll tell you the story, because it's really kind of big morale there, big kind of, learning there. I remember when Revolut started, it was very, very popular Bitcoin. It was always, like for the first 2-3 years, 2015, 16, it was number 2 market globally after UK, Revolut. Somehow, we loved Revolut there. And obviously, telco CEOs started using it as well. And then they came up with a very kind of miraculous idea. Let's form a company. 3 of us, we have 3 telcos, covering 99% of the, that's usual, 3-4 telcos cover a big chunk of the customers in the market. And then we will build an app, right? Which then we allow people to scan a QR code at the merchant. We also have a lot of businesses outlines, right? So it's going to be a no-brainer to have those merchants also put the sticker on somewhere on physical stores and online stores, so they have that. It's all documented out there if you Google it. They formed it, they kind of put the funding, initially like 5 million or something, so it's just an app, right? Just build it. They got a license, by the way, e-money license, also, it's going to be the powerful, whatever. And then they got the CEO, they didn't give them any kind of share options, anything, whatever, they outsourced the development. And then another injection, some sort of like the marketing attempts, because they hired also the best PR agency, a kind of marketing agency in the country. And yeah, I think 2.5, 3 years later, they had to dismantle, forget their losses, and kind of go away. And there are still stickers. While I'm in business, I still see those,
Why?
So the reason is you have to have, and there's plenty of reasons. There could be plenty of reasons. And one of the common ones that I noticed, and I use that I try to use it. It's the onboarding, is some sort of, as you said, consent, is then the too high hopes, or thinking not too deep, too romantic, exactly. And then some fights between, that was I heard it from the background, a lot of fighting. What do we need to do? There's three of us, we are the smartest people in the room, right? We are like 3 CEOs, and we own this whole thing. We put the CEO there, but then I think it's this, no, let's do this.
If you put 3 CEOs together, it has been destroyed all.
Especially telco CEOs,
Because most telco CEOs have worked in the other telco, because it's very close loop, so they jump from one to another. So, but now, if we continue like that, we'll say, well, this thing is a fad, forget about it, it's one of these things that they are going to do. I believe that if you are careful enough and you are not megalomaniac, I think what happens with these great ideas is consultants jumping from all kinds of spectrum, high, medium, low, very low, it doesn't matter, and they just create, they make need necessity and create mega buzz that this is going to be the only thing in the future. It becomes megalomaniac, and then of course it leads into big disappointments. If you speak to as far as where consumers and customers give you permission, because all these things, forget the customer. They say, well, we'll be all together, why not? The customers will be there, they don't need to go anywhere else. But then they do a lot of research, they ask the customers, do you like that first? And then they say, fantastic, we've asked 1,000 people and they're all ready to suicide if we don't have it. And they believe, but then when the customer says no, but why? Well, I think some years ago I was running a big retailing chain, and somebody came to this fantastic idea to start selling life insurance and pensions. Why? Because we were selling credit, and since we were selling credit, people trusted us, and since they trusted us, to make lifetime commitments and to offer them a pension scheme. I said, okay, let's do some true market research. Then, at some stage, one customer said, you know what? Why don't you draw your lines and stay where you are good at, and don't try to escape to other territories that they don't belong to you. Stick to your territory. I think for as long as these SuperApps or apps or synthetic apps, not SuperApps, stay within their territory. For instance, you make a payment, you know why the payment is taking place, and you attach something on the payment, stick to that. Don't try and impose to the customer, well, I have a better solution where to stay. I know you're going to go to France. I know you can book there, but I have a better proposition to book there. No, customers will not give you permission for that. They will love a good insurance package or the payment. They will be surprised. How did they find out? But nevertheless, they will go with that. My belief is apps just doing one thing. They will be just servicing. If you add components within reason, by adding value can be being instantaneous, being fast, being integrated pricing, whatever, you have a chance. If you are megalomaniac that you are gonna control the universe,
but at the end of the day, the question is, what problem are you solving for? What is the problem? And going back to your example, what was the problem that these guys in the telecom were solving for?
No, exactly. I think it's just egoistic, whatever. Like let's show the world that we can do it, type of thing. Because we were getting questions right from the start. Like banks could do it in a second. What you guys are doing. Or imagine banks can like just do this, right? What you are doing, you are done, and it's the problem would be good. The problem could be really good. Their solution or what they wanted to achieve is really simple, right? They really wanted to kind of smoothen the customer support, get more money through their systems. That's another kind of thing because it would go through their system, telecom systems, right? I don't want to talk about that. Let's maybe switch one thing. And let's say in our case, still majority of customers, although they then tend to use trading much more than the core of the app, still come through the core of the app, right? And in many cases, as you say, what is the problem they're trying to fix? In many cases, still the big problem is not the data banking, because our kind of average, deposit the amount is really small compared to the real banks. It's when they feel the pain, right? And the pain is still in the FX. Let's say when they travel outside Eurozone, when they need to kind of send money to somebody in Australia and they see that it's going to take a week, if they send it through Swift. So they come in, but then they kind of realize other things, the trading, especially, some other stuff, insurance, etc. And they kind of start rolling that system, right? And slowly kind of increasing, in many cases, increasing kind of the trust and use. But still, in our case, I'm referring to Andreas, the thing. Maybe also, I don't know if we have to look at this, to look at SuperApps to some extent like Amazon Prime. At least we kind of see that to some extent as you get it, especially with our money-making plans, as an Amazon Prime kind of thing, and you get different plan, or you subscribe and you get a lot of things, and we will work very hard to give you a lot of things, a lot of value in this kind of package.
But at the end of the day, isn't the SuperApp discussion around who is controlling the customer interface and to have the relationship with the customer? Because at the end of the day, you are the one controlling the customer. You might have different services. The customer doesn't care if they're your
ultimately yes,
or somebody else's.
Ultimately yes.
But you're the one who is controlling this, and you have the power to go to this.
Ultimately yes. We have some services though that we, for example, cash deposits that we introduced recently. We have this kind of bit of not our standard clunky kind of way that they also need to sign up on that for that. Better to be able to deposit So it's kind of clunky on that side, but ultimately I think you're right. And what gives us now a bit more chance, this is kind of too obvious, obviously, we can try things and we can really, as we say, quickly get the data and try them out. Different things that we find that's interesting. On the standalone apps, for example, there is an app which does one thing, and we can just think, okay, well, that's excellent. Let's just build an MVP and let's test it on 30 million customers and let's see how it goes. And that's also the beauty now with having the customers.
Clear. So for you, for me it's clear. Now, in the case of Andreas, I guess the question for me is, okay, you're a regional player. You do what you do well. The question is, would you be willing to give up the customer interface to somebody else, strategy-wise, or this is not, you think, because, as I said before, the SuperApp here is about controlling the access, the gateway, the customer. And because, if you're a regional player, I don't know how easy or how feasible it is to build something that you are the one controlling. So, I don't know, it's a big event.
If I was a retailer, I would like to build a SuperApp to attract more customers. If I'm a bank, I would like to ring-fence my own customers and start adding value to my own customers. So very unlikely for me to give up my onboarding, because for a bank, customer is the DNA. So therefore, is to participate in some kind of networking perhaps, but why a bank will build a super app? Primarily to justify the costs that it imposes to customers. So most banks in Europe, not only Europe, have moved into subscription banking. Why? Because day-to-day banking costs a lot of money. So somehow they moved from always on charge to prepaid. So there's a tendency banks copy unknowingly the telco industry, because the telco industry is further ahead in this type of topics and concepts. So they built a prepaid fund. But customers are not stupid. They say, well, you asked me to pay for prepaid for things that I thought that they would be free of charge, so why do you do that? So you're not a good bank. So banks go say, you know what? You will get all that, but surprise, I'm offering you telco services, this service, I will find out for you, blah, blah, blah. Since they have gone out to the market to get wholesale pricing to things that customers will pay retail pricing. So somehow, as far as the bank strategy is concerned, all these extras, they are to justify the core. And this is quite important. If you have that clear in your mind, you don't make mistakes. It may work, it may not work, but at least you don't have illusions. If you start having illusions that, I will do that, but I will start building an ecosystem with Airbnb and this, that, and the other, that will all be connected, and you think that Airbnb is going to let you run the customer journey for customers from within, then you move into the illusion space.
But is there a difference between a global player and a regional one, or you don't see any difference in terms of how it goes?
Well, the global player has some advantages and disadvantages. The advantage is that they have scale, they can team up with big guys, and all sorts of things. The local player can customize within the region, so therefore customers will relate more to local brands, to English industries. The big players, if we think that Amazon is a super app, we want to target that Amazon is a super app. Yes, anywhere, Amazon is like nuclear bomb. It explodes, it kills everything in the vicinity. You cannot have many of those, and there are, as you know, there is an Amazon-like business that does very well. And why does it do very well? Because it relies solely on local suppliers that they couldn't even access the website of Amazon. So I think there's place for everybody. So long as there is a very clear answer, why do you do it? Why do you want to make money? Do you want to justify the money you make? So it's a defensive act. Do you want to ring-fence your customer base? But still, we have to be honest to ourselves. You cannot be a company to force your customers to stay within the territory. And even supermarkets have failed to do that. During crisis, there were people buying this stuff from this supermarket, driving to the next one to buy toiletries, then driving somewhere else to buy something else. What's the definition of a supermarket? A supermarket, to some extent, is a super app, because everything is there, and you don't need to exit. Common journey, many brands, all they need service within the same shop, or within the same e-catalog. Nevertheless, they have failed, even the Tesco's for the centuries, to sell everything to all the customers. So there's something you need to understand better our customers and human behavior and human interaction.
Okay, very interesting. So last question. So if we go in the direction of defining the super apps not as the marketplaces and the Amazon and the likes, I would say that they are more of the marketplace. So let's say in the West, probably you have Revolut is probably the one with the more features. then you have PayPal who's trying to do something, then you have Apple and the ecosystem. Twitter, they like to say that they are, but they are not.
Yeah.
So they, I like to be asked about that, but they're not. These guys are not yet, they have not even done what they, so
But
they're very early.
talking about Twitter, about X.com, right? This is exactly the one. So, let's say I'm talking just about just general kind of sentiment, let's say, and I'm pretty sure that other big players out there would probably worry much more, although they are not the SuperApp yet, but knowing who is behind, the guy who's was part of PayPal, and he kind of knows, these kind of, forces.
They can do very well with PayPal.
We'll see. But at least I would be more worried about them, let's say, versus some regional, regional bank, or like JP Morgan building some digital app, So this is another kind of angle there, because I know it's great, it's so many things to sort out on all fronts, especially the regulation and so on. But yeah, who knows? And in our case, it's all about marathon. Panagiotis. It's all about marathon. I know it's printing a lot, but in the end, it's about marathon.
The question is, if you, let's say that we meet in 3 years' time, same place, so would you say that there is a chance that we move in the direction of somebody achieving this scale in the West, Europe and the US, and that is, somebody is going to be, because now there's no clear front-runner.
It's so impossible to predict these things. I'm pretty sure regulation can kill some of the initiatives. Maybe AI will be kind of some sort of, holy grail, as they say, right? Like maybe sorting out some of the issues or somehow finding a way, to get there. It's almost like impossible. I mean, it is impossible to predict anything on that side. I really don't know.
Okay. Andreas?
Yours has ChatGPT, so change my words. No, I don't think so. Having said that, earlier on you showed, I think it was your slides, how fast ChatGPT evolves in 5 days. I think, why do I think that we want to see something like that over the next few years? Because I think there are more important problems to solve. It's not that it is impossible to happen, but I think we have to have a hierarchy of problems that suppliers, customers will face over the next 3 years. We have to face, we don't underestimate macroeconomics and society and geopolitics. The ecosystem, especially in Europe, but not only in Europe, is preoccupied with some really big problems at the moment. And unless we address some of these big problems, don't expect energy to be invested in these second order priorities for the time being. That's my view at least.
Look, agreed. At the same time, I think every person's personal problems are the biggest problems in the world. That's my view, right? And then, even if it's flooding in the middle of Greece, right, as you say, there is a lake apparently re-emerging again, and many other kind of, it's a war about, just in the neighborhood, right, etc. In the end, it's going to be the promise. How do I save more? How do I raise my family? How do I, get more money, etc. And maybe, just maybe, these SuperApps could somehow see how to solve these problems as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for the discussion. Thank you.